When you were a child, can you remember the first time you felt a deep sense of dread? Perhaps it was a time when you lost your parents in the supermarket and thought you would never find them. Or perhaps you lost a loved one or a pet at a young age and realized the nature of your mortality. Well, I have a young daughter who just started her first year of school, and I am witnessing her experience true dread for the first time. It is the realization that she now has to be away from home for 7 hours a day, 5 days a week, that she is going to be told what to do throughout that whole time, and as she has seen me working all day long, that this will likely never end. All of these things are combining in her little head to form one of the most universal sources of dread that I think all people can relate to: the fear of growing up. In the world of Little Nightmares, sure, the monsters are grotesque, the settings uncanny, and the jump scares are potent. But in my opinion, that is not where the true horror stems from, at least for myself. It comes from the experience of the two protagonists, children lost in a realm of nightmarish adults, and how their journey through the dreamscape of the nowhere will change them. For the player, this can be a dreadful reality for younger audiences who wish to retain their childlike spark, as well as for grown adults who see elements of themselves within the nightmare. Let's begin with a lightning round recap of the chronological events, which begins with Little Nightmares 2. Yes, I know that the narrative actually begins with the mobile game Very Little Nightmares, but to be honest, I have not played it yet, and so I cannot provide much analysis, and only Little Nightmares 1 and 2 were developed by Tarsier Studios, the original creators, with their original vision. However, it is important to note that in this game, it is revealed that Six's experiences in Little Nightmares 2 are not the first time that she has had within the realm of nowhere. In Little Nightmares 2, you play as a boy called Mono, who begins within a dream. Suddenly, he awakens in a dark forest. After traveling through various hazards and traps, he comes upon a house, and inside he finds a young girl turning a music box. This girl is called Six. She initially recoils, but after Mono beckons her, the two make their escape. They evade the mysterious hunter and ride a detached door across a sea to the Pale City, the main setting of the game. A looming signal tower pierces the skyline. The two travel through the city, narrowly escaping monster adults such as the teacher and the doctor. Along the way, Mono encounters various television screens that he feels compelled to move towards, and when he touches them, he finds himself back in the dream from the beginning of the game, running down a hallway towards a closed door marked with an eye. Six is able to pull Mono out of the dream each time except for the last one, where Mono is able to reach the door and open it, revealing an entity that has come to be known as the Thin Man. Six is finally able to pull Mono out of the dream, and the two try and escape, but the entity is too powerful, capturing Six while Mono hides under a bed. The only thing left behind is a shadowy version of the girl. Mono progresses through the city and discovers that he is able to travel through the TVs, and he escapes past the faceless hollow adults who mindlessly watch blank screens. After confronting and defeating the Thin Man, Mono ascends the looming signal tower and comes face to face with Six, who now has a monstrous form and is cradling the music box that she was playing with at the start of the story. After a harrowing experience, Mono smashes the music box and Six reverts to her original visage. The tower begins to bubble with masses of flesh and peering eyes, and the two children make their final escape. However, in a shocking twist, after Six catches Mono in a desperate leap of faith, she releases her grasp and sends Mono plummeting into the black depths, escaping the tower alone. Mono awakens among the fleshy mass that was pursuing him and finds a chair, no other options but to sit. He waits and waits, and waits some more, growing older as an unknown amount of time passes. Eventually, he takes on his final shape, that of the Thin Man itself. A bonus scene shows Six emerging through a TV, and waiting for her is the shadowy form of herself that was created when she was abducted. The shadow gestures to a poster of a sea vessel, the very same one that she explores in the first game, and she is stricken with her first pangs of hunger. The story of Little Nightmares 1 begins with Six awakening aboard a massive sea vessel known from the promotional material as the Maw. The DLC, Secrets of the Maw, reveals a good amount about the world, so I'll recap that and the base game simultaneously. But anyways, Six begins wandering through the Maw, traveling through the depths, the kitchen, the dining hall, and finally the personal chambers of the Lady, the matriarch of the vessel's operations. Along the way, she encounters more monstrous adults who are capturing the children who awaken, packing them into meat paper, shipping them off to the kitchen to be prepared and eventually fed to the deluge of guests who arrive but once a year to partake in a massive feast. She also encounters small gnome-like creatures who are revealed to be escaped children that are captured and transformed by the Lady. We see this in the ending of the DLC. Throughout her journey, Six is stricken with hunger, and each time that she feeds, her shadow self can be seen lurking in the darkness. She consumes moldy bread, a cut of raw meat, a live rat caught in a trap, a gnome who is offering her sausage, and at the climax of the narrative, the Lady herself. Upon consuming the Lady, she is filled with a black magical energy and slow walks to the exit, sapping the life out of the numerous guests who scramble to feed upon her. She ascends the staircase and is not seen again by the residents of the Maw. Now, the lore and narrative of these games is intentionally ambiguous, and there are many theories out there regarding the specifics of certain things, such as the Signal Tower, the paradoxical time loop from Little Nightmares 2, the nature of the Lady, and why she has pictures of children that somewhat resemble Six, as well as many more. But going into those topics is not what this video is about. One thing is clear about the Nowhere: the children are victims and the adults are abusers. Many of these adults hold typical vocations: a hunter, a teacher, a doctor, a chef, and a janitor, all roles that are important cogs in the machine of society. There are a few outliers who fall outside of these generalized fields, those being the Lady, the Granny, the faceless hollows of the Pale City, and the Thin Man. But the others that I just mentioned are all careers that a child in the real world may one day take on themselves. And in the game world, they do seem to hold these important roles that support the society of the Nowhere, if you can even call it a society. While my personal experiences with people who have held these roles has mostly been positive, you don't have to look far to understand why people who hold the jobs could be feared by children. As a disclaimer, I don't want to disparage anyone who has had these careers. All of these jobs are mostly filled by good, hardworking people. But from the perspective of a child, I think it's fairly easy to see why someone who is of a younger age could fear these adults. I think this is an excellent time to share Connor McGrath's video about the topic. It's linked in the description. But while on the surface, these childlike fears can be very real, there is a deeper fear that links all of them, which I stated at the beginning of the video, that any given child will become one of these adults. You may grow up to become a janitor, cleaning the filth and detritus left behind by others. You may become the doctor who administers painful injections, and you may become the teacher who forces children to sit still and listen to an arduous lecture about the merits of the old man in the sea. What must happen as an integral part of this transformation is that you must leave your childhood behind. This is not a choice. Everyone is forced to reckon with the reality that the whimsical, wide-eyed wonder that everyone has at the start of their life will be stripped away, and that we must find our place within the world. And I'm not having a Joker or breadtuber moment here. This is the reality for all living things. The only difference is that we, as humans, are blessed, or cursed, with the intellect to perceive the reality. I believe the other monsters represent things that are a bit more thematic rather than explicit societal archetypes, and they represent fears that adults and children can likely relate to. The granny, regardless of her in-game backstory, has been neglected and relegated to living in isolation within the depths of the maw. Anyone who is an older relative living in a nursing home can immediately recognize the correlation. The fact that many nursing homes exist in the decrepit state that they do is a tragedy, and the message is clear. Eventually, you may become too old or too sick to take care of yourself, and your family, if one even exists, might not have the means or simply the desire to support you in your twilight years. You could die alone. The faceless hollows of the Pale City are an interesting case study. In my view, they are symbolic of the ravenous appetite for entertainment and the need for external fulfillment through said entertainment. These creatures have lost all sense of personal identity, obsessively pouring their attention into static TV screens, often to their death. From the perspective of a child, this could represent a neglectful parent or guardian who, after working all day in an unfulfilling job, remains glued to their preferred entertainment source in a desperate attempt to fill the void they feel within themselves. And neglectful parents are not unique in this, for many adults in general fall into this cycle. Sleep, work, TV, sleep, work, TV, over and over again as the years pass by. It's a terrible reality to anticipate as a child and to experience as an adult. And the way the Hollows violently react when Mono breaks their focus is an exaggeration, but not so much so. Sometimes similar things happen when the TV is accidentally broken, a remote is lost, the game console is unplugged mid-game, or the internet just simply doesn't work. It's the endless consumption of media as a crutch, and when the supply chain is cut, there are consequences. This tangentially ties into what I believe the central theme of Little Nightmares 1 is, a game that was originally titled Hunger. Literal hunger and gratuitous food consumption is an obvious element, but I believe it is also a commentary about consumption in general. The children are packaged to be processed and consumed by the obese guests, who are also processed and consumed by the next round of guests. This can be interpreted as being symbolic of many things, but one glaring comparison is the entertainment industry. Companies like Disney, for example, have talent scouts that search for children to be the next big hit, and many aspiring child actors are put through the ringer with promises of fame to be consumed by a massive audience. The successful ones continue to be consumed all throughout adulthood, their brand becoming more a part of themselves every day. To stray away from the brand, they are risking destroying their product and the fortune that being an entertainment star provides. And add to that the fact that their brand will inspire others to follow the same path. There is a similar effect going on with reality TV and the day-to-day lives of some people being consumed as entertainment. These viewers growing attached to the personalities that these reality stars showcase. And it's not just large media companies. There are more family and challenge channels on YouTube than ever before, and while some certainly don't have sinister motives, there are more and more stories coming out about kids and adults alike being placed in uncomfortable or downright dangerous situations. Just more examples of things that begin as childlike aspirations that are shed to make room for reality, as well as feeding the culture of consumption that permeates the modern day. This brings me to the lady, the main antagonist from Little Nightmares 1. She takes the form of a geisha, which is a Japanese woman who is described as a hostess, entertainer, and performance artist, according to Wikipedia. The descriptor of a hostess is especially apt, for the lady is indeed the hostess of the grotesque banquet that is the apex of the Ma's operations. Geishas are not only hostesses, however, they are skilled dancers and entertainers who require lengthy training on unique styles of dance as well as other art forms. The name itself is a combination of two kanji, roughly meaning art person. They are generally well respected for their artistic talents, and it is this aspect of the lady's character design that I find relevant to today's topic. Becoming a professional artist is something that many children and adults alike aspire to be, and children who exhibit artistic talents are sometimes encouraged to use their talents professionally when they grow up. However, the catch that we artists come to learn is that it's exceptionally rare for an artist of any specialty to make a living by creating freely. Most artists, musicians, dancers, etc., need to find a way to cram their creative output into a place within society if they intend to earn a living from it. In the music sphere, this is known as selling out, and while the phrase has largely been corrupted in my opinion, this idea exists throughout art culture at large. One particularly poignant example is that of the advertising graphic design industry. Company logos, advertisements, and the like are all carefully crafted by artists to maximize your attention, ingraining the company and the products that it sells into your mind so that you may spend your time and or money on them. The composing of jingles for pharmaceuticals and other companies is another closely knit example.
We are Flintstones kids, 10 million strong and growing.
Now, as I said earlier, I'm not condemning any graphic designers or composers who work in advertising. They found a way to mold their creative process into a form that will fit into our modern ecosystem. And in truth, most great art has been created by request or through commissions from antiquity through the modern era. Do you think Michelangelo painted the Sistine Chapel out of pure passion? Well, maybe in part, but he was also paid a boatload of cash by the Catholic Church to do so. All I am saying is that even creative people are not free of having to contort themselves and shed their innocence if they want to support themselves using their craft. And bringing this back around to Little Nightmares, this is why I think that the character design of the lady is very clever and evocative. She is the hostess of the grotesque banquet, but she also represents an artist who has fully given themselves to a system that is in the business of consumption and coercion. Okay, maybe I was having a bit of a Joker moment there. There is one example from Little Nightmares 2 that exemplifies this subject, and that is the relationship between our player character Mono, Six, and the Thin Man. Mono is a blank slate, a stand-in for the player within the game world, so I can only speak from my perspective. Just keep that in mind. But anyways, Mono begins his journey as a kind-hearted kid. When he discovers Six, he gently reaches out to her and beckons her to escape with him. He doesn't force her to leave, she willingly leaves her music box behind and goes with him. When she is captured again by the porcelain dolls of the schoolhouse, he goes out of his way to save her from whatever the teacher might do to her, likely eat her. However, there are instances when he is compelled to enter a television and return to his recurring dream, and despite Six's repeated efforts to pull him out each time, he still attempts to re-enter the dream and open the door. Now, I do want to note that this compulsion might be completely against his will, and I think that's likely the case, sort of. I do think that the Thin Man is making him do this, but as we know, Mono is the Thin Man, at an earlier point in the timeline at least. So it is still kind of his choice in a twisted way. At least that's my interpretation. In any case, when Six is abducted yet again, Mono feels fully responsible for her safety and makes his way through the Pale City to rescue her. What we are seeing here is Mono maturing. He is changing from an innocent kid to a self-perceived protective figure, a knight whose duty it is to save the maiden from danger again and again. But when he finds her, although she has a monstrous form, she is not hostile. She is traumatized, forced to mature and grow up by the trauma that the journey and the Thin Man, or the Signal Tower, have inflicted upon her. She clutches the same music box that she coveted at the beginning of the game, desperately clinging to the only bit of childhood comfort she has left. She even attempts to share her comfort with him. But Mono, blinded by his sense of duty, does not recognize this and views the music box as not her security blanket, but as a vice that corrupts her. Even as he delivers the final blows to the music box, Six is clearly shaken, almost pleading with him to stop. But he is sure that he knows what is best for her. He knows that it must be destroyed for her to leave with him. And when he does, she does revert to her old child body, but something is very different. The remnants of her innocence have not returned. Mono takes one final leap of faith into her grasp, a leap that he has made many times before on the journey, but in this instance, she will not save him. She followed him into this nightmare. He destroyed her object of comfort and reprise from her trauma, and she lets him fall, plummeting into the abyss. What happens to Six is that she awakens in the maw and embraces the plague of consumption. Innocence fully left behind and embodying the ultimate consumer, an apex predator. Mono, on the other hand, goes through a different transformation. When he falls into the abyss, he is overtaken by the Signal Tower with nowhere to run. Dejected and defeated, he has no choice but to sit in a chair, watching his life pass by. The childlike, heroic idealization he had of himself didn't deliver in the way in which he anticipated, and from Six's perspective, only brought pain to others. He grows older, he grows taller, he grows thinner, eventually becoming the very man that plagued him throughout his journey. He has, in other words, grown up. Growing up is a kind of monkey's paw. For when we live carefree and whimsical lives as children, we observe the adults around us eating whatever they want, watching TV, playing games, drawing, composing, making YouTube videos, going wherever they please, and so on, seemingly without anyone telling them what to do or what rules to follow, and we want that freedom for ourselves. It is only as we get older and more mature that we learn the harsh truth, the weight of responsibility, surviving in a cutthroat environment, sacrificing the time that we took for granted in order to make money that keeps the gears of our lives turning. The very things we aspired to have for ourselves are revealed to not be as they seem, and our perspective on life, relationships, and ourselves shift. Ironically, many of us adults long for a return to that blissful, childlike state, an endless cycle of desire that never seems to be fulfilled. There may have also been adults in your early life that you despised, that you swore you would never be like, only to realize as you get older why these people acted the way they did, and that maybe, barring any truly heinous acts, that you are not so different. And many children grow up only to waste away, moving from one chair to the next. These themes are what I find the most horrifying about the Little Nightmares series. But, to end on a positive note, growing up doesn't have to be a nightmare. Even if you had horrible experiences, you struggle with things that are out of your control and live with trauma of your own, there can be fulfillment to be had in growing up and finding your place in the world. As someone who struggles with clinical depression, I'm speaking from experience here. We can take steps to still retain an ember of our childhood and not become a thin man version of ourselves. Maybe you need a career change or to change your college major. That thing you always liked doing as a kid? I bet you'd still enjoy doing that as an adult. Read books, play games, find a hobby, seek therapy. Go outside and appreciate how insignificant society actually is and that it's a miracle to be alive at all. The great thing about growing up is that we have more power than ever to become who we want to be, even if life didn't turn out the way we expected when we were kids. Thank you very much for watching. This one is quite a bit more personal to me than my standard lore videos, so if you enjoyed the thematic analysis and want to hear more, please let me know. I quite enjoyed making this one and would like to do more videos in this vein. As a small addendum, I just want to add that this is not at all the only theme present in Little Nightmares, and I want to know what you take away from the series. I recognize that trauma and its ramifications is another, maybe even more present theme. So please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And until next time, I hope you all have a very pleasant little nightmare.